Welcome to our seventh Lunch and Learn session in this year's Teacher Bordered Classroom series from the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. I'm Stephanie DeMichael, and I've spent 24 years developing new ways to do old things and the last 7 years supporting teachers as they've shouldered that task too. All of the information from today will be available via a Wakelet board that I've curated, and the link is below in the comments. I should also take this opportunity to mention that I offer free virtual coaching sessions and office hours, so please use the Linktree link to get in touch after today. Let's get started. We've survived through 21 months of uncertainty. We've been challenged and frustrated at times, but that's what learning is supposed to do, challenge us and make us better. And so, in addition to supporting teachers, I've also been researching the questions: what worked, what didn't, and most importantly, what did we learn to do better moving forward? And here's what I've advocated: embracing blended learning. I've recorded a session specifically on this topic, and you can find it in my YouTube channel in my Lunch and Learn playlist. One of the modalities of blended learning touted as a method to enable engagement and agency in the classroom is the idea of individual rotations, where students move through digital and offline learning on a highly personalized pathway in a face-to-face environment. Before we get to a detailed explanation of the individual rotation model, let's briefly review what blended learning looks like in case you're new to it. According to the Christensen Institute, a nonpartisan think tank, it's this: blended learning involves leveraging the internet, meaning some learning is done online, to afford each student a more personalized learning experience, both at home and in school, including increased student control over the time, place, path, and/or pace of learning. This last part is key, and it's a natural and logical outcome of the first two. With regard to all things blended learning, I'd like to give credit to Dr. Catlin Tucker, author of a number of books on blended learning and today's go-to expert. I highly recommend you follow her on Twitter and subscribe to her blog at catlintucker.com. So to date, we've covered the station rotation model and the whole group rotation model, both aspect modalities of blended learning. And side note, you can review these quick episodes in my Lunch and Learn playlist at my YouTube channel. What makes the individual rotation model unique from its siblings, so to speak, is that the individual rotation model can be easily personalized to meet the needs of individual students, and it occurs in a face-to-face environment, hence the name individual station rotation. Think of it as personal pathways for students, as opposed to the one-size-fits-all instructional method. In her book, Blended Learning in Action, Catlin Tucker describes a group of schools using the individual rotation model. Allow me, please, to read a brief passage that might more clearly depict what that looks like. Quote, at the Summit schools in California and Washington, during the week, students move between personalized learning online, project time, reading time, community time, and mentor meetings using a playlist model. In this setup, students have agency within their personalized learning plans to set goals, access learning resources, submit work, and track their progress. Within the personalized learning time, students learn via adaptive software, which drives students forward based on algorithmic assessment of their progress. In mentor meetings, students and teachers plan collaboratively to set goals, monitor progress, and design personal projects. Though Summit schools use their model across the curriculum, some schools use an individual rotation model for one subject, end quote. The individual rotation model, also called the playlist model, since like a playlist of songs, it's highly curatable, allows students to set their own schedule of learning. Now, your school may not be ready to adopt this model across the board like Summit Schools does. However, you can certainly adopt it for a unit of learning or even for one lesson. There are a number of benefits of using the individual rotation model. Firstly, this model provides for student ownership of learning by placing responsibility in their hands. Secondly, it's much easier to differentiate learning tasks according to student skills and abilities. And finally, it ensures all students are given the ability and time to master a concept or standard. A playlist of activities is the way to go. It consists of multimodal learning activities to accommodate differentiation. This image illustrates one way of how to combine both community learning and individual learning. I encourage you to pause this video at this point to take a more examined look at this image to see how it might work in your classroom. One of the complaints I hear from teachers is, well, what will I do? How, if I'm not teaching them, how will they be learning? I encourage you to look at this list of elements to include in your playlist, but by all means, this is just the list can go on and on and on. The sky's the limit. But these are some ideas if you're looking to get started with the playlist model. Now, to make this whole playlist model lesson idea easier for teachers, I've created an individual rotation model playlist template modeled after one created by Catlin Tucker. So please allow me this opportunity to walk you through one I've created specifically for this Lunch and Learn that you can use on your own and to model for you how it's used in the classroom. So as you can see, this is just a simple Google Doc, and it can wind up, depending on how many activities you include in it, it could be a couple pages, but that's okay. The point is the students are in charge of it. You have access to it, so you can comment on it and look at students' reflections of their progress. And the point is this is a collaborative doc. Some teachers use Google Slides. I've seen some great stuff out there. Actually by Stephanie Howell. You could look her up on Twitter, but she's got great ideas for a playlist model with Google Slides. I just like to use a doc. It's simpler for students. So ideally, the list here isn't a list of to-do items because ideally the activities in this playlist model could be done in any order the student sees fit. Or some students have bad days, sometimes they have good days. The point is not to make them follow a checklist of activities with super strict due dates. The first thing that always must be included in a playlist, however, is a watch task where the teacher creates a short video or screencast outlining the activities, the expectations, due dates, things like that. Um, I also recommend having a class Q&A Google Doc where students can ask questions, but I don't always rush to answer them for students. I like to allow their peers to answer them as well, sort of crowdsourcing. Another key aspect of a playlist is the teacher check-in. This is a very short checklist or playlist where you can add your own, but this teacher check-in is key because this is where you stop, students meet with you. It's like those mentoring meetings we mentioned with Summit Schools, where you check in, ask questions, check for understanding, answer questions, get an idea of where students are at, provide some guidance or a new pathway. Down here, I've also included these simple little icons that you can use. You just copy and paste them over here into the corner. Students love visuals. Students who actually might be English language learners or are emerging readers would appreciate the visual cues. So you can copy and paste them as you see fit. Got one here for watching, for reflecting, teacher check-in, playing a game, creating something, listening to audio, writing, or doing a conversation with a peer. Of course, this you can create your own icons as you see fit, but I've just put some in here for you to use. Now let's take a look of an example of a unit that covered 1 week. I created this for a teacher who was talking about music of the 1960s and the counterculture. And here was a list of activities students did not have to do in any particular order, but they did have to complete them at their own pace. So again, the first thing there is to watch the screencast of activities. We've got a video for them, places for them to jot their thoughts, a reflection with a this or that activity. I also like to include choice as much as possible in the playlist model. Teacher check-in using Classroom Q, which you can click on if you click on this link, I can show you. Classroom Q is it's a great and easy online tool that allows, if you don't want to write on a whiteboard, it's just a way for students to line up if they want to meet with you. It's really easy. And then again, more activities for this unit. Over here, this is where students can take notes, about what they wondered, what they noticed, about what they're struggling with. This is a great place for student self-reflection and to assess their own learning. Um, and as a teacher, you'll have access to it, and you can also use once students write a note or ask a question, you can certainly use the comment tool up here to respond to students as well. It's really simple. I don't want you to think that this is difficult, hard to use. It's honestly taking maybe a lesson where you have a one size fits all lesson and looking at your kiddos and saying, okay, the tools are out there. Um, how can I take one lesson and easily differentiate it so that all kids learn something? The playlist model or individual rotation template is the way to go. This is here for you to use and customize as you see fit. And there you have it, a simple, manageable individual rotation or playlist template. I hope that the idea of individual rotation allows you to let students explore and to be a very present part of their own learning because it allows you to do what you do best, be the supportive coach. And here we come. My favorite part, because it's about food, because this is a lunch and learn. I like to share out healthy and easy lunch ideas for very busy teachers. This week, as the temperature drops, I've got a link for easy meal prep noodle cups instead of having to buy those generic ones. So if you're a prepper or if you'd like to get started using one, the recipe in the Wakelet board is a good place to start. This recipe has less sodium and preservatives and way more flavor than those store-bought options. And finally, again, if you need anything, the first link will connect you with all of my socials, so feel free to reach out at any time. The second one connects you to my Wakelet board with links to things that we discussed today. I'm Stephanie DeMichael. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you for this week's Lunch and Learn. Good luck with your teacher-boarded classroom. Happy holidays to everybody, and I will see you in 2022.